My sister evicted my elderly parents from the new house I gave them, saying that she and her husband needed it more. I grew up watching my parents' hands. My father's were permanently stained black from sorting through other people's trash, searching for aluminum cans and recyclable scraps. My mother's were cracked and dry from endless hours washing dishes at the diner on 5th Street, working double shifts whenever they'd let her. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in Riverside Heights, the kind of neighborhood where sirens were background noise and broken streetlights stayed broken for months. The walls were so thin I could hear our neighbors arguing through them. The heating barely worked in winter. But it was home, and my parents worked themselves to exhaustion to keep it. There were 2 of us kids. My older sister was 17 when I was 12. Even then, I could see the difference between us. She'd look at our apartment with this expression I couldn't quite name, disgust maybe, or hunger for something else. She'd complain about having to share a bedroom, about our secondhand clothes, about everything. I didn't complain. I'd come home from school and head straight out with a garbage bag, collecting cans from the park or behind restaurants. The money wasn't much, maybe $20 or $30 a week, but I'd bring every cent home and put it in the jar on the kitchen counter. My mother would hug me so tight I could barely breathe, tears in her eyes. My sister would roll her eyes. "That's pathetic," she'd say. "We shouldn't have to live like this." She wasn't wrong. We shouldn't have, but we did, and I couldn't understand why she'd rather do nothing than help. On weekends, I'd hand out flyers for local businesses, 3 cents per flyer. My feet would ache after hours of walking, my backpack heavy with stacks of paper. Sometimes people would take them. Sometimes they'd walk right past me like I was invisible. I didn't care. Every flyer handed out was 3 more cents. My sister got a part-time job at a clothing store when she turned 16. Finally, I thought. Finally, she'd contribute, but the money never made it home. New clothes appeared in our closet instead. Name brand shoes, makeup. She'd prance around in her new outfits, posting photos on social media while my mother worked another double shift. "You need to help Mom and Dad," I told her once. We were alone in our room, her trying on a new jacket. She laughed. Actually laughed. "I work for my money, I can spend it how I want. But Mom's working 70 hours a week. That's her choice, not my problem." I was 13. She was 18. I wanted to scream at her, shake her, make her understand. But what good would it do? My father's back started giving out around that time. Years of bending over sorting stations and hauling bags of cans were catching up with him. Some mornings he could barely stand up straight. But he'd still drag himself out at 5 in the morning because if he didn't work, we didn't eat. I learned early that love wasn't just a feeling. It was a choice you made every single day. My parents chose us. They chose to sacrifice their health, their comfort, their dignity. They chose to keep going even when everything hurt. My sister chose herself. I was too young to understand the full weight of that difference. But I felt it in every jar of coins I filled, every bag of cans I dragged home, every time I watched my mother's eyes light up with gratitude for the smallest contribution. I felt it in the way my sister would lock eyes with me across the dinner table, her expression saying what her mouth didn't. "You're a fool for trying." Maybe I was. But at least I could sleep at night. The years that followed would prove which of us had been right. Or rather, which of us had been human. But back then, in that cramped apartment with the broken heating and thin walls, all I knew was that my parents deserved better than they had. And if my sister wouldn't help give it to them, I would. Somehow. Even if it took the rest of my life. My sister landed a job at an auto parts store when she was 19. She started as a cashier, but within 6 months, they'd promoted her to assistant manager. The pay was good, really good for someone her age with no degree. She moved out 3 weeks after the promotion. She didn't ask if our parents needed help with rent, didn't offer to contribute to groceries or utilities, just packed her things into her boyfriend's car one Saturday morning and left. I watched from our bedroom window as she loaded the last box, never once looking back at the building. "Finally," I heard her tell someone on the phone that night. I'd called to check if she'd made it to her new place safely. "I'm out of that dump." That dump was still home to the rest of us. I was 15 by then, working after school at a grocery store while taking night classes at the community center. Bookkeeping basics, mostly. Numbers made sense to me in a way they didn't, to a lot of people. I figured if I could learn accounting, maybe I could get an office job someday. Something stable. Something that paid enough to help. Every paycheck, I'd cash it and bring the money home. $200 every 2 weeks. Sometimes $250 if I picked up extra shifts. My father's back was worse. He'd had to cut his hours, which meant less money coming in. My mother was still working doubles, but the diner had started cutting staff. Her shifts were unpredictable. I'd see my sister maybe once every 2 months. She'd show up driving a car. Nothing fancy, but newer than anything our family had ever owned. She'd park right in front of the building, windows down, music playing, making sure everyone could see she'd made it out. "You should come see my place," she told me once. I was 16. She'd stopped by to drop off a birthday card for our mother. "It's got central air and everything, 2 bedrooms. The complex has a pool." "That's great," I said. "Mom and Dad would probably love to see it." Her smile faltered. "Yeah, well, it's kind of far, and I've been really busy with work." It was a 15-minute drive. I knew because I'd looked up the address once. Curious. "Maybe you could help them with—" "Don't start." She cut me off, her voice sharp. "I worked hard for what I have. Nobody gave me anything. Nobody's asking you to give anything. Just help a little. Like you do?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Bringing home your little grocery store checks? That's not helping. That's just enabling them to stay stuck where they are." The words hit me like a slap. Stuck? They're not stuck. They're struggling. Same thing. She grabbed her keys from the counter. "Look, I'm not going to feel guilty for making something of myself. You want to waste your life playing savior? Fine, but don't expect me to do the same." She left. I stood in the kitchen, shaking with anger I couldn't quite express. That was the pattern for the next 3 years. She'd appear sporadically, always in new clothes, always with some story about a promotion or a raise or a vacation she was planning. Never with money, never with help, never with anything that might actually matter to the 2 people who'd sacrificed everything for her. Meanwhile, I graduated high school and enrolled in night courses at the community college. Accounting. I worked days at the grocery store, studied at night, slept maybe 5 hours if I was lucky. My father had to stop working entirely when I was 18. His back had deteriorated too far. The disability payments were a joke, barely enough to cover his medications. My mother was 63 and still working 70-hour weeks. I'd catch her sometimes, sitting at the kitchen table after her shift, just staring at her hands. The same cracked, dry hands I'd watched my whole life. "You should rest, Mom," I'd tell her. "I will," she'd say. Soon. But soon never came. It couldn't. Not when rent was due and utilities needed paying and my father needed his prescriptions filled. My sister got married when I was 20. She'd been dating the same guy for 3 years. The one with the car. He worked in construction, made decent money. The wedding was small, just immediate family and close friends. I was invited. Our parents were invited. I watched my sister in her white dress, smiling for photos with her new husband, accepting congratulations from guests. She looked happy. She looked free. She looked like someone who'd successfully escaped a life she'd been ashamed of. During the reception, someone asked her about her family. I was close enough to hear. "Oh, they're simple people," she said, her tone careful. "Very traditional. They never really understood ambition." I wanted to walk over and tell that person the truth. That our mother had worked herself to the bone so my sister could have food and shelter. That our father had destroyed his body so she'd never go hungry. That simple people was just her way of saying she was embarrassed by where she came from. But I didn't. I sat at our table watching my mother's forced smile, my father's hunched shoulders, and I understood something I'd suspected for years. My sister hadn't just left our neighborhood. She'd left us. All of us. And she had no intention of ever really coming back. 2 months after the wedding, she had her first child, a baby girl. She sent us a photo. Never invited us to visit. When my mother asked about meeting her granddaughter, my sister always had an excuse. Too busy. Baby's not feeling well. Maybe next month. Next month never came either. By the time I was 22 and my sister was 27, the distance between us wasn't measured in miles anymore. It was measured in choices, in values, in the fundamental difference between someone who remembered where they came from and someone who'd worked hard to forget. I'd chosen to stay, to help, to honor the people who'd given me everything they had. She'd chosen herself. And somehow I knew this was only the beginning of that choice destroying what was left of our family. The years between 22 and 27 were a blur of work and study. I finished my degree in accounting and landed a job at a small firm downtown. The pay was decent, enough to cover more of my parents' expenses and start saving. My sister's life seemed to expand while ours contracted. Her social media was constant updates, her kids in matching outfits, a newer car, beach vacations, nice restaurants, always thriving. Our parents saw none of it in person. "Have you talked to your sister?" my mother would ask, holding her phone, looking at photos. My nephew was 3, My niece was 5. Strangers to us. Not recently. Maybe you could ask if we could visit. I'd tried. Multiple times. The answer was always, things are hectic, or the kids are sick, or maybe in a few months. My father didn't ask anymore. He'd stopped expecting anything. His health had declined. He needed a walker now, his spine so damaged that standing caused visible pain. He was 67 and looked 80. My mother was 66, still working 40 to 50 hours a week. Her hands shook with arthritis. Years of repetitive motion had destroyed her joints. I'd taken over most bills. Rent, utilities, groceries, medications. My savings grew slowly because everything extra went to them. Seeing my mother buy groceries without checking her bank balance was worth it. My sister came by when I was 25, unannounced. She drove a different car, an SUV. Her hair professionally colored, nails done. She looked like a magazine. "Just wanted to stop by for a minute," she said, breezing past me. Our parents were both home, my father in his chair, my mother preparing dinner. "Oh, Mom, you should rest more," my sister said, voice sugary. I bit my tongue. She saw our mother twice a year and offered advice. "How are the children?" my mother asked, face lighting up. "Growing so fast." My sister showed pictures on her phone. "This is from the zoo last week." "That's wonderful. Maybe we could..." "Actually, I can't stay long. Have to pick them up from daycare." She stayed 8 minutes. I timed it. As she left, my father spoke from his chair. "Your mother's birthday is next month. Maybe you could bring the kids. She'd love to see them." My sister's expression flickered. "I'll try. Things are just really busy with work and the kids' schedules." She didn't try. The birthday came and went. A card arrived in the mail. No visit, no grandchildren. I took my mother to dinner that night. She smiled the whole time, but I could see the disappointment. "Your sister has her own life now," she said. "Her family. It's different when you have children. You had children. You still made us your priority. That was different." "How?" She didn't answer. We both knew it wasn't different. I threw myself into work. I was good at my job. My boss gave me more complex accounts, more responsibility, more money. By 27, I was making enough to cover everything and still save. For the first time, I had a goal that felt possible. A house. Nothing extravagant, just something with space for them to be comfortable. A place where my mother could have a garden, where my father could sit on a porch. I'd drive past houses sometimes imagining a small yard, 2 bedrooms, maybe a garage. I'd picture my mother's face when I handed her the keys. My sister posted about her own house around that time. They'd bought it, 3 bedrooms in a nice suburb. Manicured lawn, 2-car garage, updated kitchen. Her husband had gotten a promotion. They were doing well. She didn't mention our parents, didn't mention they were still in the same rundown apartment, still struggling. But I wasn't angry anymore. I'd moved past anger years ago. Now I felt something colder, more resolved. I was going to give our parents the life they deserved. Not because I was competing with my sister, not to prove anything, but because it was right, because they'd earned it, because someone needed to remember that love wasn't just a word, it was something you did. Every single day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. My sister had made her choice. I'd made mine, and soon, our parents would finally have something to show for a lifetime of sacrifice. I just didn't know yet how badly my sister would try to take it away. The job offer came 2 weeks after my 35th birthday. Director of logistics for a distribution company. The salary was almost double what I'd been making. Benefits, retirement matching, everything I'd worked toward. One catch. The position was in Riverside, 3 hours north. I sat in my car after the interview staring at the offer letter. With this salary, I could save enough for a house in less than 3 years. But 3 hours away meant I couldn't drive to my parents' apartment every other day. Couldn't check on them in person. My father was 75. My mother was 74. Both frail. She'd finally stopped working 2 years ago when her arthritis made holding plates impossible. They lived on his disability and what I sent them. I called them that night. "That's wonderful, honey," my mother said. I could hear the pride. "You worked so hard for this. But it's 3 hours away. We'll be fine." "Mom, we'll be fine," she repeated, firmer. "You take that job. You've earned it." Before moving, I spent every day making sure they'd be taken care of. Automatic bill payments, grocery delivery, a neighbor who'd check on them for $20 a week, a binder with emergency numbers, medication schedules, doctor contacts. "You don't have to do all this," my mother said. "Yes, I do." I moved into a modest 1-bedroom apartment in Riverside. Basic furniture. Every dollar I didn't spend on myself was another dollar toward the house. The job was intense. Long hours, complex problems. I was good at it. Within 6 months, they gave me a raise. Within a year, another. I called my parents every single day. Morning before work, evening after. I needed to hear their voices, know they were okay. My mother would tell me about her day, what she'd watched, what the neighbors said, how my father felt. Small things that mattered more than anything. Every month, I sent them money. Not just enough to cover expenses, enough for little luxuries. A better cut of meat, new clothes, a repairman when needed. I wanted them comfortable. My sister called maybe once every 3 months. 10 minutes with my mother, talk about the kids' schedules, then she had to go. She never asked if they needed anything, never offered help. Not that they would have asked. They'd learned not to expect anything. About 2 years in, I did the math at my kitchen table. My savings had grown to a number that used to seem impossible. If I kept this pace for another year, maybe 18 months, I could afford a down payment on a small house. I started looking online. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a small yard. Somewhere safe, clean, away from Riverside Heights, but not so far I couldn't visit regularly. I made a spreadsheet. If I cut my expenses further, no eating out, canceled streaming, bought only necessities, I could accelerate the timeline. 15 months. Maybe 12 with another raise. The dream started feeling real. I didn't tell my parents. I wanted it to be a surprise. I wanted to hand them keys and see disbelief turn to joy. They'd spent 50 years struggling. They deserved one perfect moment. 3 years into the job, I was 38. My savings had reached the target. I could make a down payment. I could actually do this. I started seriously house hunting. Drove through neighborhoods on weekends, imagining my parents in each space. This one had a nice porch. That one had garden space. This one was near a park. I found it on a Tuesday. A small 2-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood, recently updated bathroom, new roof. Small but well-maintained yard. The price was at the top of my budget, but I could make it work. I put in an offer that night. They accepted 2 days later. The mortgage payment would be significant. I'd have to keep paying it. There was no way they could afford it. But I'd been paying their rent for years anyway. This was just redirecting that money towards something they'd actually own. When the paperwork was finalized, I drove to my parents' apartment. 3 hours there, 3 hours back. They were expecting me. I'd said I was visiting, but they didn't know why. I didn't know then that my sister had been watching, waiting. I didn't know that the greatest act of love I'd ever done would become the weapon she'd use to destroy what was left of our family. All I knew was that I'd finally done it. I'd given my parents the one thing they'd never had, a home. I hadn't told my parents I was coming. I'd finished the house paperwork on Thursday and decided to drive down that weekend with the keys. I pulled up to their apartment building around noon on Saturday. My sister's SUV was in the lot. That was strange. She never visited. I walked up the stairs, knocked on the door. No answer. I tried the handle. Unlocked. Mom? Dad? I called, stepping inside. The living room looked different. A toy kitchen set in the corner. Children's books scattered around, a diaper bag on the couch, shoes that weren't my parents'. Who is it? My sister's voice came from the main bedroom, not my mother's. My sister's. She appeared in the hallway, my niece on her hip. She froze when she saw me. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "What are you doing here? Where are Mom and Dad?" She hesitated. "They're in the back room." The back room, the storage room, the windowless 8x10 space where my parents kept old boxes. I pushed past her and opened the door. My parents were inside. Both of them. A thin mattress on the floor with their blankets. A small lamp. My father's walker folded in the corner. My mother's medication bottles on a cardboard box. They were sitting on the mattress. My mother looked up, and I saw shame in her eyes. "Honey," she said softly, "you didn't tell us you were coming." I couldn't speak. I stared at the mattress on the floor, at my parents sitting there like refugees in their own home. "What is this?" I finally managed. "What the hell is this?" I turned and walked back to the living room. My sister was there with both kids now. Her husband emerged from the main bedroom, my parents' bedroom. "Explain," I said. "Now." "We got evicted," my sister said, defensive. "We had nowhere to go. The kids..." "So, you took their house? Their bedroom? You put them in the storage room?" "It's temporary, just until we figure something out." "Sharing space? They're on a mattress on the floor, and you're in their bedroom." We have 2 kids, her husband said. They can't sleep on the floor. They need proper beds. Your children need beds more than 75-year-old people with health problems? The kids are young, my sister said. Mom and Dad are tougher than you think. They're fine with it. Tell her, Mom. My mother had come out. We're fine, honey. The kids need stability. Your sister's going through a hard time. A hard time? You're in a storage room on the floor. It's just temporary, my sister cut in. A few weeks. How long have you been here? I asked my mother. She didn't answer. Mom, how long? 3 months, my father said quietly. 3 months. 12 weeks sleeping in a storage room while I called them every day and they never said a word. Why didn't you tell me? We didn't want to worry you, my mother said. You're working so hard, and your sister needed help. What were we supposed to do? Turn away our grandchildren? Yes, I said flatly. Yes, you were supposed to turn her away. Look, my sister said, we're family. Family helps family. That's what Mom and Dad always taught us. They're helping us. I stared at her, at the complete lack of shame on her face. Get out, I said. Excuse me? Get out. Take your kids, take your husband, and get out. You can't. I pay the rent here. I've paid it for 10 years. You have 1 hour to pack and leave. Where are we supposed to go? Her husband asked. I don't care. A hotel, your car, anywhere but here. Honey, my mother started. No, Mom, you're not sacrificing anymore. Not for her. My sister's face went red. We're in crisis. And you're throwing us out? Throwing your niece and nephew onto the street? You have a car. You have money for vacations. You'll figure it out. We'll talk to Mom and Dad about this, my sister said coldly. They actually care about their grandchildren. 1 hour, I repeated. Or I call the police. I waited while they packed. 2 hours, but I didn't care. I helped my father back to his bedroom, pulled off the sheets my sister had been using. When they finally left, my sister gave me a look that promised this wasn't over. I spent the rest of the day cleaning, getting rid of every trace of them. My parents didn't speak much. My mother cried quietly. My father sat in his chair staring at nothing. That night, after they'd gone to bed in their own room, I sat in the living room and stared at the card in my bag. The one that said, "Welcome home." Tomorrow, I thought. Tomorrow I'll tell them about the house. Tomorrow I'll take them somewhere my sister can never reach them again. I thought that would be the end of it. I had no idea how wrong I was. The next morning, I woke up on my parents' couch. My mother was already making coffee. She looked exhausted. "Morning, honey," she said quietly. "I need to talk to you and Dad about something." I called my father. He came out slowly with his walker. We all sat down. I pulled out the envelope from my bag, the one with the keys and deed inside. "I've been saving for 3 years," I started. My hands shook. Every extra dollar, every raise, I had a goal. My mother's brow furrowed. "Honey, if you need to borrow money..." "No, Mom, I bought something for you." I pulled out the keys and set them on the coffee table. "I bought you a house." Complete silence. They stared at the keys. "What?" my father said finally. "A house. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, small yard, quiet neighborhood about 40 minutes from here. Safe. The roof is new." The words tumbled out. "I wanted you to have something that's yours, something you actually own." "Honey, we can't..." My mother's voice broke. "It's already done. I put it in both your names. The house is yours." "In our names?" my father said slowly. "Yes. You're the legal owners. I'm just paying the mortgage." I leaned forward. "I wanted you to have the security, the dignity. After everything you've sacrificed, I wanted you to have something no one could ever take away." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "How much?" "It doesn't matter. I can afford it. I've set up automatic payments. You don't have to worry about anything. Just let me do this for you." "This is too much," my father said, voice shaking. "You can't stop me. It's already done." My mother picked up the keys with trembling hands. "Our own house," she whispered. "After all these years? Want to see it?" We drove out that afternoon. I pulled up to the house. Small, white, neat lawn, porch with 2 chairs. "This is it," I said. They got out slowly, staring like it might disappear. I unlocked the door. Inside, I'd furnished everything. Nothing fancy, discount stores, days of finding deals, but new, clean, comfortable. The living room had a couch and TV. The kitchen had a table. Both bedrooms had real beds with new mattresses. The bathroom had grab bars for my father. "I got the basics," I said as they walked through, touching everything. "You can change anything. Add things. Make it yours. My mother stopped in the kitchen, ran her hand over the countertop, opened and closed cabinets. I'd stocked them with dishes, pots, pans, everything. You did all this? She asked. I wanted it ready. My father sat down in a kitchen chair, put his head in his hands. His shoulders shook. I'd never seen my father cry. Not once. Not when his back gave out. Not when he couldn't work. Not when we'd had nothing. But he cried now, in a kitchen that was his. My mother stood next to him, hand on his shoulder, tears streaming. Thank you, my father said, voice muffled. Thank you. We spent the rest of the day there. I showed them every feature. New water heater, serviced furnace, double-paned windows. I'd even planted flowers in the yard. When do we move? My mother asked as the sun set. Whenever you want. Tomorrow, my father said firmly. It took 3 days, actually. Not much to move, but my father couldn't do much lifting, and my mother had to rest frequently. But we did it. Every box, every belonging transferred to the house. On the 3rd day, when everything was unpacked, they sat together on their new couch, my mother's head on my father's shoulder. They looked peaceful. Really, truly peaceful. Are you happy? I asked. Happy doesn't even begin to cover it, my mother said. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to thank me. You gave me everything. This is just giving back. I stayed that night, slept in the guest room. It felt right being there with them. I called them every day after that, just like always. But now when my mother described her day, it was different. She'd talk about sitting on the porch watching birds, about the neighbor who'd stopped by with cookies, about my father able to move around more easily. They'd lived their entire adult lives in struggle and sacrifice. And now, finally, they had peace, comfort, security, a home that was truly theirs. I'd put it in their names because I trusted them, because I wanted them to have the dignity of ownership, because I never imagined that trust could be used as a weapon. I never imagined my sister would find a way to steal it, but she did, and it would destroy everything. 4 months after my parents moved into the house, my mother's voice sounded different on the phone. Everything okay, Mom? Oh yes, honey. Everything's fine. But something was off. A hesitation in her voice. You sure? Yes, dear. Just a little tired. I let it go. I shouldn't have. My sister had shown up 3 days earlier, crying. She'd lost her job. Her husband's hours had been cut. They were being evicted again. Mom, please, she'd said with both kids. I don't know what else to do. The kids are going to be on the street. My mother had looked at my father. He'd shaken his head, but my niece had started crying, and my nephew had hugged his grandfather's leg. Just for a little while, my mother had said. Just a few weeks, my sister promised. They'd moved in that night. My sister and her husband took the guest room. The kids slept on an air mattress in the living room. My mother didn't tell me. I found out 3 weeks later during a surprise visit. I pulled up and saw my sister's SUV. Not again, I thought. My sister answered the door. What are you doing here? I asked. We're staying here. Mom and Dad said it was okay. The living room looked like chaos. Toys everywhere. TV blaring cartoons. I knocked on my parents' bedroom door. My mother opened it. She looked older, more tired. Why is she here? She needed help. How long? 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Nobody had told me. Why didn't you call me? We didn't want to worry you. It's temporary. But I could see in her eyes she didn't believe that. Something else was wrong. What aren't you telling me? Nothing, honey. Everything's fine. But it wasn't. What I didn't know. 2 weeks earlier, my sister had brought home documents, official-looking papers. It's just bureaucratic stuff, she'd told them. The lawyer said we should get this sorted now, for tax purposes. To make sure when you're gone, the house doesn't get tied up in probate. This way, everything stays in the family. My father had been suspicious. What kind of documents? Transfer papers. It puts me on the deed too. That way, if anything happens, the house doesn't go through courts. It stays in the family automatically. Everyone does this. But it's not inherited yet. I know. Dad. But this protects you. Otherwise, there could be problems. The government could take it. You don't want that, right? My mother couldn't read the legal language. Too complex. Your other daughter bought this house. We should ask her, my father had said. You could, my sister said carefully. But she's so busy. And honestly, she might not understand. This is legal stuff. And it's your house, right? You own it. You can do what you want. That part was true. The house was in their names. What if our grandchildren end up with nowhere to live because we waited? My sister pressed. My parents signed. Both of them. my mother's hand shaking, my father's jaw tight. They didn't understand what they'd done, didn't realize the bureaucratic paperwork was actually a transfer of ownership, that they'd just signed over the deed, that the house, their security, their peace, now belonged to someone else. My sister left immediately. I'll get these filed, all taken care of. Standing there 3 weeks later, I didn't know any of this yet. I just knew something was terribly wrong. I'm going to talk to her, I told my mother. Please don't make a scene. I walked to the living room. My sister was on the couch with her phone. You need to leave, I said. She didn't look up. Mom and Dad said we could stay. You're taking advantage of them. Again. I'm not. They offered. We needed help. That's what family does. Find your own place. We're looking. How long are you staying? As long as it takes. Something in her tone made my stomach drop. A confidence. Like she knew something I didn't. What did you do? I asked. What? What did you do? I don't know what you're talking about. But she did. I could see it in her eyes. I just didn't know what it was yet. I didn't know that the house I'd bought, the home I'd given my parents, the security I'd provided, it was already gone. Stolen. 2 weeks later, I drove back. I'd been calling my parents daily, but the conversations felt wrong. Too careful. Too rehearsed. My mother would say everything was fine, but I could hear the strain underneath every word. I didn't call ahead this time. Just drove down on Saturday morning, arriving around 10. My parents' car wasn't in the driveway. Just my sister's SUV parked where my father's car should have been. I knocked. Heavy footsteps inside. My sister's husband answered. Where are my parents? I asked immediately. They're not here. I can see that. Where are they? He hesitated, looked back into the house. My sister appeared behind him, wiping her hands on a dish towel like this was just a normal day. They went back to the old place, she said casually. What? The old apartment in Riverside Heights. They moved back last week. My mind went blank. They moved back? To that neighborhood? Why would they? They wanted to. Said they missed it. Missed their old neighbors. You know how old people get. That's a lie. Excuse me? That's a lie. They hated that apartment. They were terrified of that neighborhood. Why would they leave a house they owned to go back there? Well, my sister said slowly, and I saw something shift in her expression. Something triumphant. That's the thing. They don't own this house anymore. I do. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? The house is in my name now. They signed it over. For estate planning purposes. It was all legal. They wanted to make sure the house stayed in the family. I couldn't breathe. You stole it. I didn't steal anything. They gave it to me. Willingly. It's all documented. All legal. They wanted to make sure the house stayed in the family if anything happened. You manipulated them. You lied to them. I did what was necessary to protect this family's assets. And honestly, they're happier back in their old place. This house was too much for them to manage. I was shaking. Get out of my way. I pushed past her, through the house I'd furnished, the rooms I'd chosen with such care. My niece and nephew were in the living room watching TV. They looked up at me, confused. I checked every room. My parents' bedroom, empty except for my sister's family's belongings. The bathroom, their medications gone. Everything cleared out. Where's their stuff? I demanded. They took it. Everything they wanted. The rest they said we could have. The rest you could have? This was their house? Was. Past tense. Now it's mine. And we need it more than they did. We have children to raise. They're old. They don't need this much space. I bought this house for them. I worked for 3 years. You bought a house and put it in their names, which means it was theirs to do with as they pleased. And they pleased to give it to me. That's not theft. That's inheritance. Just early. I stared at her, at the complete absence of shame. You convinced them to sign documents they didn't understand. I helped them see reason. I showed them their grandchildren needed stability, a good neighborhood, good schools. What did they need? They're in their 70s. This way, they got to see their grandchildren benefit. You threw them out, I said quietly. I didn't throw anyone out. They left on their own, said they'd be more comfortable in their old apartment. Because you made them uncomfortable here. Because you made it clear they weren't welcome in their own home. My sister shrugged. Believe what you want. The legal fact is this house is mine now. The deed is in my name. Everything's filed and processed. And you can't do anything about it. We'll see about that. I'm going to fight this. I'm taking you to court. Go ahead. Waste your money on lawyers. The documents are legal. Mom and Dad signed them with clear minds. There's no fraud you can prove. They made a choice. They made a choice based on your lies. That's your opinion. The courts will see things differently. This house is mine. You need to accept that. Get out, my sister said firmly. You're trespassing on my property now. I left. Not because I was done fighting, but because I needed to see my parents. Needed to know they were okay. I drove to Riverside Heights, to the old apartment building with the broken streetlights and thin walls. The place they'd finally escaped from. The place my sister had sent them back to. I took the stairs 2 at a time, knocked on the door. My mother answered. She looked smaller somehow, older. The life that had returned to her in those months in the house, the light in her eyes, the ease in her movements, all of it was gone. "Honey," she said, and immediately started crying. Behind her, I could see the apartment. The same worn furniture, the same cramped space. My father sitting in the same chair he'd sat in for decades. His walker beside him. They'd lost everything, and it was my fault for trusting that my sister had any humanity left. I sat with them for hours. My mother cried. My father stared at the floor. Slowly, they told me everything. "She showed up with papers about 6 weeks ago," my father started. "Said it was estate planning, that we needed to protect the house for the grandchildren. She said if we didn't do it, the government could take it when we died," my mother added. "Said there'd be taxes and fees, that our grandchildren would have nothing. The lawyer—" "There was no lawyer," my father said. "She printed the papers herself. We found out later." I felt sick. "Why didn't you call me?" "We tried," my mother whispered. "Your father said we should talk to you, but she said if we involved you, you'd be hurt, that you'd think we didn't trust you. She made it sound like we'd be insulting you," my father continued. "Like we'd be saying you didn't do enough. You've done so much. We didn't want you to feel bad. The manipulation was so calculated." "The money," I said. "The money I've been sending you every month." My parents looked at each other. "She told us you'd stopped paying," my mother said finally. "About 2 months ago. She said you couldn't afford it anymore, that your job was having problems. She showed us texts, messages that looked like they were from you. We know that now, but we didn't then. She was very convincing. She said she'd been paying the mortgage herself," my mother continued. "Showed us receipts, bank statements. She said not to mention it to you because you felt guilty. So the money I've been sending, we never got it," my father said. "She must have intercepted it somehow, changed the account." I checked my banking app. The transfers were still going through. $1,500 monthly to an account I'd set up for them, except it wasn't their account anymore. She'd redirected it. How long? We're not sure. Maybe the whole time she was living there. At least 3 months. $4,500. Maybe more. "When did you sign the papers?" 6 weeks ago. She filed them the next day. We got a letter 2 weeks later saying the transfer was complete. That's when we knew something was wrong. And then? My mother's voice dropped. Then she told us we needed to leave. Said the house was hers now, that she needed the space. She gave us 2 days. 2 days, my father echoed. We had 2 days. She said if we didn't leave willingly, she'd have us removed legally. She had the papers. Why didn't you call me? She said if we contacted you, she'd file a restraining order. Said she'd claim you threatened her children. She showed us how easy it was to fake evidence. We were scared, my mother said, crying. We didn't want you to get in trouble. We'd already lost the house. We couldn't let you lose your job too. You're not stupid, I said. She's a predator. We should have known better, my father said. She's always been selfish, but we wanted to believe she'd changed. The grandchildren, my mother said softly. We kept thinking about them. If we fought, we'd never see them again. She made that clear. Have you seen them since you left? They both shook their heads. She said she'd bring them by, but it's been 2 weeks. She hasn't called. I stood up and started pacing. I'm going to fix this, I said. You can't, my father said. She has the law on her side. The papers are legal. We signed them. Under false pretenses. Prove it. Prove she lied. We're old. No education. Any lawyer will say we knew what we were doing. He was probably right. The legal system wouldn't care about emotional manipulation. But there was one thing she hadn't counted on. The mortgage was still in my name. I was still legally responsible, and if I stopped paying, if I let the bank foreclose, she'd lose the house too. It would destroy my credit, but it would hurt her more. I need to think, I told them. Please don't do anything rash, my mother begged. Worse than this? I looked at her. Worse than watching you back here? I stayed that night. slept on their couch, stared at the ceiling, listening to sirens and arguments through thin walls. My sister had taken everything from them, their house, their money, their dignity, but she'd made one mistake. She'd assumed I wouldn't fight back. She was about to learn how wrong she was. I drove back to the house the next morning, 8 a.m. I knocked until she answered. She opened the door in her bathrobe, coffee in hand. "What do you want?" "We need to talk, now." I pushed past her into the living room. Her husband was feeding the kids breakfast. "You need to leave," my sister said. "No, you need to hear this." I pulled out my phone. "This mortgage? It's in my name. I'm making the payments. $1,500 every month." Something flickered in her expression. So if I stop paying, the bank forecloses. You lose the house. You wouldn't. You'd ruin your credit. You think I care about credit more than what you did to our parents? Silence. Her husband had stopped eating. "You're bluffing," my sister said, less confident now. "Am I? Want to find out? Keep the house. See what happens when the mortgage goes unpaid." The bank doesn't care whose name is on the deed. They care about the loan. And that's me. You can't. I can, and I will. Unless you transfer the house back. Today. That's blackmail. That's leverage. You used their love against them. I'm just using basic finance. You have until 5 p.m. to start the transfer process. Or tomorrow, I cancel the payments. They don't want the house back, my sister said. They told me they were happy there. Another lie. Fine. My sister's expression hardened. Go ahead. Stop the payments. Let the bank foreclose. See what happens. The foreclosure goes on your record. And me? I'll be out in 90 days minimum. 3 months of free housing. 3 months to save money. She had a point. Foreclosure took months. She'd live rent-free while my credit got destroyed. Plus, she continued, you really think mom and dad want to watch you sacrifice your financial future for them? You think they'll be happy? They'll blame themselves. And you'll have destroyed your credit for nothing. She was right. Foreclosure would hurt everyone except her. You're evil, I said quietly. I'm practical. I'm a mother. I do what I need to do. You do what you want. Your children are just an excuse. Believe what you want. But this house is mine, legally. You have no power here. If you try to hurt me with the mortgage, you'll only hurt yourself and our parents. I stared at her, at the smug confidence. She thought she'd won. You're right, I said finally. About the foreclosure. It would hurt everyone. Good, so we're done. But there's another option. What? I pay off the mortgage. In full. Today. Her expression changed. You can't afford that. I can take out a personal loan, borrow from retirement, whatever it takes. I pay off the mortgage completely. The lien gets released. So then it's actually worth something. No debt. You could sell it tomorrow. Get the full value. Probably $200,000, maybe more. I watched her face. Greed replacing suspicion. Why would you do that? Because then you leave. You sell the house, take your money, and go somewhere else. Away from mom and dad. Forever. You'd pay off my mortgage so I can sell and keep the money? Yes. Why? Because I want you out of their lives. Completely. This way everyone wins. You get a huge payday. I get you away from our parents. They get peace. My sister was quiet, calculating. How do I know you'll actually do it? We go to the bank today, together. You can watch. And you want what in return? A signed agreement. You'll sell within 60 days. You won't contact mom and dad except for formal legal business. You stay out of their lives. What about my children? Their grandchildren? You made that choice when you threw them out. You don't get to use those kids as leverage anymore. She bit her lip, thinking. Her husband was watching, doing his own calculations. $300,000, my sister said suddenly. The house is worth at least $300. Then you'll make $300,000 for doing nothing except signing papers and leaving. You're really going to do this? Destroy your finances to pay off a house I'm going to profit from? If it means you leave them alone? Yes. My sister smiled. The same smile from childhood. The one that said she'd gotten away with something. Deal, she said. I left to start making calls. To figure out how to come up with $250,000 I didn't have. I was about to destroy my financial stability. Maybe forever. But it was worth it. In 60 days, my sister would be gone. And my parents would finally be free. I didn't pay off the mortgage. I lied. That was always the plan. Instead, I stopped the payments entirely. Let the notices pile up. Let the bank start foreclosure. It took 6 weeks for the first official letter. By then, I'd already moved my parents in with me. The day I drove down to get them, they were waiting with their belongings packed. They looked older, smaller, more fragile. "Are you sure?" my mother asked. "We don't want to be a burden." "You're not a burden. You're my parents, and you're coming home with me." My apartment in Riverside wasn't big. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, but it was clean and safe and 3 hours from my sister. I gave them my bedroom. I took the couch. We packed everything they had left, 6 boxes and 2 suitcases. A lifetime condensed to almost nothing. We settled into a routine. I'd work, call them at lunch, come home to find dinner made. They were quiet, grateful, still apologetic. "We should be taking care of ourselves," my mother said constantly. "You took care of me for 18 years. I can take care of you now." The foreclosure moved slowly. Legal notices, court dates. The bank didn't care about emotions. They wanted their money. When 60 days passed with no payment, they accelerated. My sister called. I didn't answer. She called again. I blocked her number. She tried emailing. I sent it to spam. She showed up at my building once. Security called me. I told them she wasn't allowed in. She stood outside for 2 hours before leaving. Through mutual contacts, I heard bits and pieces. The bank had started formal foreclosure. She had 90 days to vacate. She was scrambling to find somewhere to go. She tried calling my parents. My mother looked at her phone every time, tears in her eyes. But she didn't answer. If she wanted to stay with me, my sister didn't exist anymore. 3 months after I stopped paying, the bank scheduled the eviction. My sister had found a rental, a small 2-bedroom in a rundown complex, the kind of place she'd once looked down on. The universe has irony. She tried one more time. A letter, handwritten, sent to my work address. The letter said she was sorry, that she'd made mistakes, that she'd only been trying to secure her children's future, that family should forgive family. I read it once, tore it up, threw it away. Family forgives family. She'd used that line before, when she was taking advantage, when manipulating. But she'd forgotten the most important part. Family doesn't throw family into storage rooms. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't lie and manipulate and destroy. She'd broken the family, not me. My phone rang one evening. Unknown number. My sister was crying. Real tears this time. "Please," she said. "We have nowhere to go. The kids..." "You have somewhere. You found a rental. It's horrible. Bad area. Terrible schools. My kids, your kids will be fine. Plenty of kids grow up in bad areas." I did. You did. That's different. How? I don't want this life for them. Then you should have thought of that before you stole from your own parents. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Please. Help us. Help you? The way you helped Mom and Dad? I was desperate. I made bad choices. But I'm your sister. You were my sister. You stopped being my sister when you put our 75-year-old parents in a storage room. I'll make it right, I swear. Just please. There's nothing to make right. This is your consequence. Live with it. How can you be so cold? Turn your back on family? I learned from the best, I said, and hung up. She didn't call again. 4 months after I stopped paying, the house sold at auction. The bank recovered most of what was owed. My credit score plummeted. It would take years to recover. 7 years for the foreclosure to fall off my record. But my parents were safe. They had a place to live, food, peace. And my sister had exactly what she'd given our parents. Nothing. She lived in that cramped 2-bedroom with her husband and 2 kids. Her husband took a second job. She couldn't find work that paid enough. The kids changed schools mid-year. Everything she'd done to secure their future had destroyed it instead. And I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, just nothing. My parents never asked about her, never brought her up. When my mother looked sad sometimes, staring out the window, I knew she was thinking about her grandchildren, about the kids who'd been used as leverage. But she never said their names. She'd learned the hardest lesson, that sometimes love means letting go, even when it breaks your heart. We were 3 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment. My credit was destroyed. My sister was living the life she'd once pitied. But we had each other. We had peace. We had the absence of manipulation and fear. And somehow, that was enough. 5 years have passed since the foreclosure. 5 years since I last spoke to my sister. My parents are 79 and 80 now. 2 years ago, my credit recovered enough to rent a bigger place. A 3-bedroom townhouse with a small patio. Nothing fancy, but it's ours. My mother has a garden now. Tomatoes, herbs, flowers that bloom in summer. She tends it every morning. My father sits on the patio in afternoons, reading or watching birds. His mobility has declined, but his mind is sharp. They've aged differently than before. No stress in their faces now. No fear, no exhaustion, just the natural aging of people finally allowed to rest. I've been promoted twice. The foreclosure hurt my credit, not my job performance. By 43, I was senior director. The pay is good, enough to support all of us comfortably. We have routines, Sunday pancakes, Tuesday game shows. My father yells at the contestants. My mother laughs. These are the moments I bought with that destroyed credit score. Worth it. Every single point was worth it. My mother keeps a photo album now. Pictures of our life here. The garden, holidays, normal moments that became precious. She never includes old photos. It's like those years happened to different people. In a way, they did. My father talks sometimes about regret. We should have seen it coming. You loved her, I tell him. That's not a flaw. My mother doesn't talk about my sister. Sometimes I'll catch her looking sad. And I know she's thinking about her grandchildren. They'd be teenagers now. Strangers she'll never know. That grief is permanent. But she doesn't regret cutting contact. Sometimes love means protecting yourself, she says. Even from your own children. Through distant relatives, I hear fragments. My sister's still in that 2-bedroom apartment. Her husband works 2 jobs. The kids struggle in school. She never found good work. She tried reaching out once more, 3 years ago. A message through a cousin. Don't respond, I told them. Some bridges stay burned, not out of cruelty, but out of self-preservation. My sister chose greed over family, manipulation over honesty, her comfort over her parents' dignity. Those were reflections of who she was. I chose differently. I chose sacrifice. I chose my parents. I chose to build something honest. We both got exactly what we chose. Last week, my mother and I were planting flowers. The afternoon was warm. Do you ever wonder if we could have done things differently? She asked. No, we did everything we could. She made her choices. But the grandchildren weren't ours to save. She used them as weapons. I wish I'd been stronger earlier. You loved her. That's not weakness. It felt like weakness when she put us in that storage room. Loving someone who doesn't deserve it isn't weakness. It's just love misplaced. You know where to place it now. She smiled. Small, but real. That evening, my father called me to the patio. The sun was setting. We know what you gave up for us, he said. The credit. The loans you couldn't get. The opportunities you had to turn down. It was worth it. You didn't have to. There was no could have. There was only what I did. And I'd do it again. His eyes were wet. We won the lottery when we had you. We're grateful. For everything you sacrificed wasn't a sacrifice. It was a choice. The right choice. He nodded. That night, I thought about the path that led here. The poverty. My sister's descent. The house I bought with love. The way it was stolen. The decision to destroy my credit to protect my parents. All of it led here. To this piece. To Sunday pancakes and gardens that bloom. My sister is struggling somewhere with consequences. Her kids growing up in the environment she once scorned. Her marriage strained. Her future narrower. I don't feel good about that. But I don't feel bad either. She's a stranger now. Someone who made different choices. And me? I'm 43. My credit is rebuilding. My career is solid. My parents are safe and happy and loved. I have peace. Real peace. The kind that comes from knowing you did the right thing, even when it was hard. The house that broke us was never really about the house. It was about what we valued, what we were willing to sacrifice for, who we chose to be when tested. My sister chose herself. I chose them. And looking at my mother's garden, at my father reading an afternoon sun, at the life we've built from the ashes, I know I chose correctly. Some people get the ending they deserve. My sister got hers. So did my parents, and so did I.